Dr. Walt here. Research shows that there are 4 factors that we must each consider if we wish to be as highly healthy as possible. What are they? And how do I know if I'm as healthy in each of these spheres as I've been created to be? I'm going to show you today on this edition of Ask Dr. Walt.
Today, our health includes our mind, our body, and our spirit. Separating medical facts from fiction is the key that leads to wise decisions about our health and well-being. Unpacking the latest research is vital. Doing what works helps us live our best lives today. How can we live longer? How can we live healthier? Let's ask Dr. Walt on Liftable TV.
Hi everyone, I'm family physician Dr. Walt Larimore. I'm delighted that you're taking time today to join me in my home office to chat about how you can become highly healthy, or if you are, how you can remain highly healthy. I'm going to tell you, during my medical school days at Harvard, well, it was Louisiana State University in New Orleans. We called it Harvard on the Bayou. But anyway, during my medical school days and during my family medicine residency at Duke, I was taught to recognize and to treat diseases. But I had little training in keeping people healthy, and even less in how to motivate people to become fit and healthy. So for most of my medical career as a family physician, I've had to learn ways to promote health, not just treat sickness. 4 of my best-selling books are on this topic. 3 contain the words highly healthy, and my 4th is Fit Over 50. Make simple choices for a healthier, happier you. But don't let that title fool you. Fit Over 50 has tips for every age and is particularly helpful for those under 50 who want to arrive at the age 50 as healthful as possible. Well, it all started about 10 years ago. I informally surveyed more than 200 physicians and health experts from many countries, and I asked them 3 questions. The questions were, what is health? What are the essentials of health? And what tips would you give to your patients, friends, and family on becoming healthier and living longer? And after cataloging all of their responses, I then searched the medical literature and scores of studies and trustworthy medical recommendations, looking primarily at those focusing on wellness and longevity. And what surprised me was just how much evidence there was suggesting that living long and living well depended on the powerful connection between 4 facets of health. And so I call those my 4 health wheels, Dr. Walt's 4 health wheels. They're real simple. Our physical health, our emotional, mental health, our relational, our family health, and our spiritual health. In fact, in 2003 was when I first called these the 4 wheels of health. And I proposed that if these 4 wheels of health, if these 4 health tires were not as fully inflated or finely balanced, that one's ride down the road of life would not be as smooth or as long as it could be. And breakdowns could be more frequent than I desired. Now, this concept sort of arrived in my mind way back when Barb and I left residency at Duke and went out to the mountains of North Carolina, a little hamlet called Bryson City, a town of 900 people with 38 Baptist churches. And we practiced there for about 4 years. But I got into whitewater kayaking, and I would go out to the Nantahala River and the Nantahala Outdoor Center, began to know the staff out there. And I met an attorney who was retired, he was a kayaker, but he had a hobby of working on Model T cars. And I enjoyed going to his house and working on those cars. But what I learned from him was that early Model T car, the tires on that thing, if they were a little bit out of a balance, or if the tire was a little bit underinflated, or if any of the spokes were bent or broken, that car simply could not run as long, could not run as well, and would be damaged more quickly if the tires weren't healthy. And so that's what I love that idea of the 4 wheels of health. And of the 4, I consider the spiritual health wheel as the most important. And the reason is, it's connected to power steering himself. And Dr. John Fisher agrees. He writes this, at our core, or the French word core, the heart, we humans are spiritual beings. Spiritual health is a, if not the, fundamental dimension of people's overall health and well-being. permeating and integrating all other dimensions of health. Now, I find many of my patients think that physical health is the only aspect of health. But if you're in great physical health and yet suffering emotionally, mentally, relationally, or spiritually, are you highly healthy? No, you're not. I want to tell you a story about a physician that I practiced with. This was a world-class athlete. This guy was in fantastic shape, as handsome as can be, intelligent to kill the band. But his family life was a wreck. He had no spiritual life whatsoever, and he just didn't make friends. His social life was a disaster. Was he healthy? No, he was far from healthy. And he wrecked marriages, and he wrecked relationships, and he wrecked his practice. Great physical shape, but not healthy. And then I've had patients who've been extremely disabled. I guess my favorite is Barb and my daughter, Kate. Has cerebral palsy, no right brain, half a left brain. It'd be hard to call her physically healthy. But relationally, spiritually, socially, this kid is a gem. She shines. She's one of the healthiest people that I know. In fact, I have a doctor friend who told me about a patient of his who, at the prime of his adult life, became paralyzed from the neck down in an accident. Yet this man exuded hope and enthusiasm due to his deep relationship with God. And he supplemented that by rich family and social relationships. My doctor friend wrote me this. He said, the essence of true health is physical, emotional, social, and spiritual well-being. When these four dimensions are singing in harmony, you're healthy. I love that. When these four dimensions are singing in harmony, you're healthy. Now, that doesn't mean there's no room for a dissonant chord, but that the music of life is pleasant to the ear. My quadriplegic patient, my doctor friend said, seems to me to be highly healthy despite his sobering physical disability. Like I told you, I've cared for a lot of disabled, diseased people in my 40 years as a family physician, and many of them are far more healthy than my most physically healthy patients. And what they all share is a conscious and continuous effort to seek the highest possible degree of health in these four aspects of their lives: physical, emotional, mental, relational, social, and spiritual, religious. There was a 2018 Harris poll of more than 2,000 American adults who examined how people define being healthy. And they reported this: 92% of adults agreed with the statement, health is so much more than just not being sick. Now, interestingly, my four health wheels are similar to what is now described by many experts. For example, a group of university researchers in India wrote this. They said, spirituality now has been identified globally as an important aspect for providing answers to many questions related to health and happiness. They add, the World Health Organization is also keen at looking beyond physical, mental, and social dimensions of health. And the member countries of the WHO are actively exploring what they call the fourth dimension of health, the spiritual health, and its impact on the overall health and happiness of an individual. So here's how I define the four wheels of highly healthy people. I call it Dr. Walt's definition of the four wheels of health. Well, physical health is the well-being of one's body. Emotional and mental health is the well-being of one's mental faculties and one's connection with their emotions. Relational and social health is the well-being of one's associations with family, friends, and faith in the context of a healthy community. And spiritual health is the well-being of one's relationship with God. I think the spiritual aspect is the biggest surprise for many of my patients. Harold Koenig, he's an MD, a family physician, and a psychiatrist who's director of the Center for Spirituality, Theology, and Health at Duke University, and a good friend of mine, wrote this. He said, I have reviewed and summarized hundreds of quantitative original database research reports examining relationships between religion, spirituality, and health. And these reports have been published in peer-reviewed literature in literally every discipline: medicine, nursing, social work, rehab, social sciences, on and on and on. And the vast majority of these studies report significant positive relationships between religion, spirituality, and better health. In fact, when we look at the medical literature, all four of these wheels are connected. You can't be unhealthy in one and be all healthy in four. We're just not designed that way. So because of this, I've kind of got this mantra now. I believe doctors shouldn't just ask what's the matter, but what matters. I'm not alone in that. Theologians and pastors and physicians have said this for centuries. I like John Wesley. He's a co-founder of Methodism, an English cleric, a theologian, and he wanted his family, friends, and followers, towards the end of his career, he wanted to write them on how they could have highly healthy lives. And he published a book in 1747. He called it The Primary Physic, or an essay on the natural medicine of curing most diseases. Now, he defines physic as the art of healing.
Pick that up again, just read it again. It's natural method of curing.
Yeah, I goofed it up, didn't I?
Primitive physic.
Mm-hmm.
Primitive physic.
Okay, I'll start with English cleric. But what matters is where we're ending and we're picking up.
Hold it.
So English cleric and theologian John Wesley, who was
Hold on a second. Wave your hands and go to number 3, and then do it.
Number 3 or 4?
3.
just so they know something.
There we go.
English cleric and theologian John Wesley, who was a co-founder of Methodism, wanted his family, friends, and followers to enjoy healthy lives. In 1747, he wrote Primitive Physic, or an easy and natural method of curing most diseases. Now, Wesley defines physic as the art of healing. And in his treatise, he suggested over 36 rules for living a balanced life and preventing disease, rules that involve all four wheels of health. These are some of my favorites. And see if you can't pick out the physical, emotional, mental, relational, and spiritual wheels that Wesley wrote about so long ago. So first of all, he says, people should have those who are much about them, who are sound, sweet, and healthy. Number 2, water is the wholesomest of all drinks. 3, persons should eat very light suppers, and that 2 or 3 hours before going to bed. Sounds like he's writing today, doesn't it, Mark? 4, constantly go to bed about 9 and rise about 4 or 5. I think we've got some kids and teenagers that need to read that one. Number 5, a due degree of exercise is indispensably necessary to health and long life. He says walking is the best exercise. The open air, when the weather is fair, contributes much to the benefit of exercise. 6, he says, those who read or write much should learn to do it standing. Otherwise, it will impair their health. Exercise first should always be on an empty stomach. Secondly, should never be continued to weariness. Thirdly, after it, we should cool down by degrees. Just a couple more. The slow and lasting passions, such as grief and hopelessness, bring on chronic diseases, what we would call chronic diseases. Grief, hopelessness, chronic diseases. You could be a modern researcher. Number 9, till the passion which caused the disease is calmed, medicine is applied in vain. And finally, the love of God, as it is the sovereign remedy of all miseries, and by the unspeakable joy and perfect calm, serenity, and tranquility it gives the mind, it becomes the most powerful of all the means of health and long life. Could you hear the 4 wheels in these health tips? And also, did you see that Wesley identified spiritual health, which he defined as the love of God, as the sovereign remedy of all miseries? Definitely the health wheel connected to power steering. Now, these 4 wheels are also outlined in the Bible, where Dr. Luke, the only physician who wrote books in the Bible, wrote about the preteen Jesus. Now, he wrote the Gospel of Luke and Acts, but in Luke, he wrote about the preteen Jesus, and he wrote this about the human side of Jesus. Luke 2:52, and Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. Do you see the 4 wheels there? Do you hear them? So Jesus grew in wisdom and stature, favor with God and man. So he grew in wisdom, He had emotional health, mental health. He grew in stature, physical health. He grew in his relationship with God, favor with God, his spiritual health. And he grew in his relationship with other people, relational and social health. Well, how many people have you met who have all four wheels perfectly balanced? None of us do. We all kind of fall short of that standard. But the important thing to remember is that we all share a common need to constantly test our wheels, to balance our wheels, the different parts of our life. And maintaining a highly healthy balance is a lifelong but a life-enhancing task. Now, I'm going to fuss at you a little bit because just sitting on your duff, on your sofa, simply watching a health program or watching it on your small screen, even a great one like this, won't make you highly healthy. In my book, Fit Over 50, I wrote this. To become a highly healthy person, you need to understand the four wheels of health and then take personal responsibility for your health. Your health isn't your doctor's responsibility or your therapist or your psychologist or your pastor or your spouse. It's your responsibility. I wrote that the average person tends to neglect what is needed to become highly healthy. Why? Because it takes work and it takes time. But I'm here to promise you, it will pay ample dividends. Lastly, I said, you may be enticed by some healthcare scammers who promise that their particular therapy or tonic or tablet will simply, easily, and quickly cure all that ails you. And I'm here to tell you, it won't. So where do you start? Well, I'm glad you asked. Along with the health professionals at Kaiser Health in California, I developed a tool to help you assess and measure the current status of each of your four health wheels, and also tools to do this for your teens and for your children. And it's absolutely free. It just takes a little bit of time. So just visit my website at drwalt.com, and when you get there, you'll see a whole bunch of stuff that's available for you. I'll run through this real quick. So at the top, my regular blog posts, you click on that if you want to subscribe to them. They're free. You're welcome. And then down the page a little bit is a twice-a-day devotional. It's called Morning Glory, Evening Grace. You can subscribe to that. There's no charge for that. And then my and Barb's travel schedule and events. But if we go below that to the very bottom of the page, this is what I want you to concentrate on. These are the assessment tools that are available to you and your family absolutely for free. So if you kind of look at the left upper top, you'll see Assess Your Health Adult, Secular, Assess Your Health Adult, Christian. So if you're a person of the Christian faith, that Christian one has kind of a robust spiritual history designed for Christians. If that's not your thing, you're not Christian, then the secular one would work for you. They're also available in Spanish and Chinese. But I want you to look at the four-wheel diagram because that's where you go first. And so Jordan's just going to click on that for us. And when we click on the four-wheel diagram, up comes this empty diagram of all four health wheels. So if you and your spouse are taking it, print off a couple of those. That's your first step. And then Jordan will go back to the website, and then you pick the assessment that works for you. Maybe it's the adult assessment. If you look over in the right column, you'll see that there's assessing your teens' health. If you go down the page in the left column, there's assessment for young adults. Down a little bit more, Jordan. There you go, young adults. And then there's an assessment for teens, and there's an assessment for children. And it's got about 300 questions. So let's go up a little bit to the Assess Your Health. We can do the Christian one and click on that. And what will come up is a file that you can print off. It's got about 300 questions that you then can answer. And I recommend take your time, answer absolutely honestly, and then you can self-grade that, and it will tell you what your grade is on each spoke. And then you're able to draw your wheels, and you actually get an idea of your health wheels. Are they balanced? Are they round? Are they full? Are they healthy? Or do you have some problems like a couple of the cases that I'm going to show you now? The first example I want to give you is a patient of mine, a 34-year-old married Caucasian woman. Now, this is a stock image. This isn't my actual patient, so I'm not breaching, HIPAA rules or anything like that. But anyway, my actual patient had 3 children under 5 years old. She had a husband who frequently traveled and worked long days. They regularly attended church, but her medical list was really complex. It included very irregular, very heavy menstrual periods, chronic tension headaches, adult acne, insomnia. She had trouble both going to sleep and staying asleep, nightmares, fatigue, decreased sexual appetite, we call that libido, and mild depression, chronic depression. In short, she was just miserable. She had a lot of stuff going wrong with her, a lot of problems that could have come from any of her health wheels. And where in the world would I start? Well, what I typically do with patients like this is to do a four-wheel assessment. And I want to show you her four-wheel diagram. And Jordan, hold just a second, but I want to show her diagram. And in mere seconds, you'll be able to see which of her health wheels is most out of balance. So, are you ready? I'm going to give you 3 seconds to figure it out. Here we go. So what you can see is if you look at each of the spokes, where's the longest spokes? Where's the shortest spokes? Which wheel is most flat? Well, she's got several that are flat. So the physical wheel in the upper left's kind of flat. The emotional wheel in the upper right's a little bit flat. Her relational wheel, it looks like it's pretty full. But look at her spiritual wheel. It's by far the flattest. In fact, it has one spoke, meditation spoke, that only has 1 point on it. And so for this lady, where I needed to start wasn't a whole bunch of blood tests and psychological tests. It was just starting with the spiritual wheel. And the second out of balance wheel, the most second, was her physical health wheel. Exercise, rest, substance abuse, safety, nutrition, BMI. So we had a direction that we could take that kind of helped us focus. I want to give you another case from my case files. This is a 14-year-old African-American male. He was brought to my office by his dad. His family was active in church. His complaints were obesity, fatigue, poor sleep, and lots of problems with other kids. Now, once again, this isn't the actual child. This is just a stock image. But let's take a look at his. Jordan, hold just a second, because this one, I'm going to have you make the diagnosis in 3 seconds. So you ready? Which wheel is the flattest? 1, 2, 3. So if one of these was the tire to your car, which one would you get the air gauge out for? Well, obviously, it's the upper left-hand corner. It's the physical health wheel. And you know, his complaints of fatigue, poor sleep, lots of problems with other kids. This sounds like a lot of our teens this day. Where would the problem be? Well, within seconds of looking at his four-wheel diagram, I could see what the problem was. His flattest wheel was nutritional and substance abuse. His second flattest wheel was in the area of overusing media. And spiritually and relationally, he was pretty balanced. But in very short order, I was able to work with this young man and his family to better balance his spokes. Mainly, there was some substance abuse going on that he had never admitted to his parents, and he had never admitted to me. And he was ingesting a lot of media that was affecting him emotionally. You can see that the media and learning wheel had a real flatness there. So we were able to begin working with him to balance that. And I'm really happy to tell you that today, his spokes have expanded. His wheels have inflated. His health car is balanced. And I'm happy to tell you that he's grown into a very well-balanced man, husband, father, and he's now a pastor. Well, here's my challenge for you. Go to drwalt.com. Download a four-wheel diagram and the assessment tool that's appropriate for you. And then honestly answer all the questions. Use the self-grading tool, draw out your four wheels, and then I'd like to ask some of you to send them to me. I'd love to include them in a future program. We won't identify you, but just to show how helpful that is. And you can send them to me at my email address. It's drwalt@liftable.tv. And the same thing for any questions that you might have. If you're interested in more information on the four wheels of health, then I refer you to a book of mine. It's the 10 Essentials of Happy, Healthy People, Becoming and Staying Highly Healthy. A lot more information about the four wheels. It's available at drwalt.com. www.wheels.com. I hope you'll take advantage of these wheels. I look forward to hearing from you about them. But until our next visit, let me leave you with this advice from the disciple, from the Apostle John. He said, "Dear friends, I pray that you may enjoy good health and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well." I'm Dr. Walt. I'll see you next time on Ask Dr. Walt.